What up, ladies and sinners? Welcome to another Tuesday evening edition of the hottest show in Vegas, or the hottest growing show in the Vegas, in the biggest or the hottest growing sports market in all of America. This is IE Vegas, the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio. I'm your host, Cale Henderson, and we're back at it again another Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You guys know how we do it. All right? Hope everyone's happy, healthy. A lot of exciting news. It's going to be quick first 15 minutes because we are just going to kill it on the three sports that are the hot focus in Vegas as of right now. And then we are going to take the last 45 minutes and talk about the Raiders, because nobody circles the wagons. I'm just kidding. That's a Bills reference. Chris Berman, we got to love him. Miss that old guy. No, seriously. We got to talk Raiders. Because this past Monday, I was on 3 and Out with the legend, the man, the myth, the legend, Larry B. We're going to play that interview. It's about a 30-minute interview. And we're going to finish up, just adding a little bit of insight to that after that's done. A lot to unpack. Won't lie to you. But there's a lot we have to get into the show in just an hour. Also want to announce, after speaking with Larry B a couple times, the man, the myth, the legend of IE Sports Radio, he has given me ideas on videos, because videos is something we really want to start doing here at IE Sports Radio. So, as the Raiders season's going, because I like to splurge on my Raiders, I will have film access, coaches access, and we will be doing basic breakdowns of why the Raiders win and lose on a week-to-week basis. If you guys think that is cool, if you want to learn a little more about the X's and O's of what the Raiders do, make sure you get at me on Twitter. Give me some feedback. I want to hear it in the chat today. I want to hear it. Tag me. We'll get into it. I'll whiteboard it and everything. It'll be a very short video, but I'm going to talk to you guys about my favorite concepts and what I think won the Raiders the game. Small videos, but I think it'll be a great addition to the show. It'll be a fantastic addition to our social media, which is Twitter, on Twitter, at SinCity_IESR. We're rolling, folks. Before we get into those other sports teams, I would love to talk about our sponsors, the people that pay the bills, the Southern California Warriors semi-pro football team. The world of semi-pro sports is unlike any other sports organizations. Players pay to play in hopes of so many different outcomes, whether it's playing to get filmed, to try out for professional teams, big-time colleges, or just playing to stay in shape. No matter what, all semi-pro players have one thing in common, and that's playing for the love of the game. The SoCal Warriors have been on a quest to earn titles and give players second chances since 2017. Whether you're in Southern California or anywhere in the world, give semi-pro sports a chance if you love your sport. You may get that second chance you have been waiting for as an athlete. Social media, Twitter, at SoCal Warriors, Instagram, at Southern California_Warriors, Facebook, Southern California Warriors. Las Vegas Aces are killing it. I just want to transition to those ladies, give them the flowers they deserve. Here's what you need to know. The Las Vegas Aces have already clinched a playoff berth. You heard it first. They already clinched it. All right? And it is very likely they have home field advantage in the West. Or they have the number 2 seed. Regardless, Las Vegas Aces have clinched a playoff seeding. These ladies are killing it, guys. Make sure you get out there, you support. They've won 6 out of the last 7 games. They're 6-4 in the last 10, so they've really turned it on as of late. Right now, they have a 10-point lead against the Chicago Sky, and it is that tournament that our boy Adam Karnick from the Chicago Sports Show mentioned earlier. These two teams are kind of going head-to-head. They've been going head-to-head all season, trading places at the top of the leaderboard, at the top of the standings in the WNBA, and it looks like that could trade places again tonight with a win. I mean, with a win, I want to say the Las Vegas Aces, well, they'll tie records, but there's a possibility Chicago Sky still has that tiebreaker, because I think they beat them twice this season out of their 3 matchups. We'll take a look at that, but either way, the Lady Aces, they've clinched it, they've killed it. Just recently, let's take a look at the news. Just recently, the Lady Aces happened to re-sign All-Star MVP Kelsey Plume to a contract extension, which is huge because she's been killing it this year. Plume Kelsey Plume, Aja Wilson. I mean, these ladies are averaging 25 plus points a game. They're killing it. I would say over this last half season they have over 20 points a game for sure each, and that's a big reason why the Aces are killing it right now. Not to mention they do a great job at home. They do a great job on the road. 10-5 at home, 10-3 on the road. It's just one of those things, man. They just 13-2 in conference, like in the Western Conference, they're just untouched almost. I mean, it's crazy the landslide victories that they've had in the Western Conference. They certainly have their work cut out for them in the East, because I don't think Chicago's going to lay down. But listen, Commissioner's Cup, Aces are up by 10 after 3. I love it, Taryn. Thank you so much for the assist there. I love it. Taryn's throwing up double doubles today, and he's not even having to try. That's how Taryn rolls. Transitioning over to UNLV, folks. A lot of fans are upset with Arroyo, Coach Arroyo, Marcus Arroyo's initial 2 seasons. Listen, I think we need to understand something. UNLV is in the Mountain West Conference. I think they're building. They weren't a very good program before he arrived. With that being said, his first year was COVID, right? His first year was COVID. All 15 practice sessions, spring practices that teams are allotted, were canceled in UNLV because he was in a mecca. He was in Las Vegas. Nothing was allowed to basically happen in Las Vegas. He was unfortunate there. Like, there's nothing he could do. On top of that, there was only 6 games that year. So not only was recruiting a challenge because you're just getting hired as a head coach, you have to fill out your staff. You have to target recruits. You have to hope you land recruits. Usually that first year is not a very good one unless you're in a major program and you're a major name like, Lincoln Riley at USC. Those types of things just don't happen very often. Usually your first year is a really bad year of recruiting. If it's not really bad, it's average. It's not something that's going to move the needle. You just hope that existing roster really steps up and buys into what you want to do. On top of that, the 2021 season, first full off season for recruiting, everything like that. Coach Arroyo, man, he's doing what he can. I think the defense massively improved. The offense is going to be more of a upperclassman type offense this year. So I think we're going to see some things come together. You also have to understand the Mountain West Conference is no joke. The Mountain West Conference, I don't think gets enough credit. Fresno State's a badass school. San Diego State. Dude, those guys run train on most of the Mountain West. I would say that San Diego State runs the football so well, they could do it against major conference teams. I would say half the Pac-12 teams San Diego State could beat. That's not a joke. Pac-12 is that bad. But San Diego State is good enough to compete against the Power 5 Pac-12 teams. They could totally beat them. I don't know if it would be a landslide victory, but San Diego State has a habit of just running people over. UNLV's in that type of a conference. They're also in a conference with what? Boise State? I mean, are we really not going to talk about Boise State? Utah State? I mean, come on, guys. You're taking a program that was already bad. You have the COVID year. Didn't really get a full recruiting cycle. You don't have spring practice. 6 games. You have your first overall off season. Yeah, the team didn't play that well the last 2 years. I think we need to have some patience. Have some patience. Absolutely, Taryn. Taryn says Kelsey Plume is really talented for the Aces. Yes, she's killing it. Her and AJ Wilson are basically carrying the league, if we're being honest. Chicago Sky is one of those teams that just has a really good team effort, but the Las Vegas Aces have stars. Plume and AJ Wilson are stars. Aces should be honored to have her. Absolutely. UNLV should have patience. 100% agree. 100% agree. I want to say SDSU beat Utah. Yes. Yes. Utah's a good school. Utah played in the Rose Bowl last year. Utah's tough, man. Very tough. They're a good program year in, year out. Kyle Whittingham knows what he's doing there. Kyle Whittingham is one of the only coaches, and I'm going to say this right here, right now. In 2007, 2008, when he first took over, basically inherited a Utah program that was built by Urban Meyer, if we're being honest, right? Loaded with talent, I get that. But he's one of the only coaches that can say he beat Nick Saban. He beats Nick Saban in a BCS Bowl. A lot of people don't want to remember this, but I think it's 2007, 2008, the Utah Utes beat the Alabama Crimson Tide in the Sugar Bowl. Kyle Whittingham runs a great program, and they lost to SDSU. I'm telling you guys right now, San Diego State is a hell of a program. They run the ball. They're so physical. They just find the dogs, man. It doesn't matter where they go across country. They find dudes that move other people around, and they love doing it. It's a lot like Wisconsin. You guys see how Wisconsin is. They always have the biggest, baddest offensive line in the nation. I have no idea how they do it. You know, that offensive line might be bigger per pound, per inch, you know, height. Watch how I say that. Yikes, I need a filter. Oh my gosh. Anyway, per pound, Wisconsin has one of the biggest offensive lines in college football. We're including Alabama. We're talking about Alabama, Ohio State, LSU. I mean, all those big SEC teams, Georgia, and Wisconsin still has one of the biggest offensive lines there is, and that's the way SDSU builds their offensive lines. Big physical mammoths that just push people around. They love to do it. So yeah, I think Coach Arroyo needs a little patience. I think people need to chill out a little bit. He's doing the very best he can. Golden Knights, not a lot going on there. I know that they're really trying to figure out their cap situation. Right now they're in cap hell. I want to say they're $1.04 million over the cap. So they have to figure out something there. I can tell you that their recent trade, I think their recent trade helped. I think their recent trade allowed them to get closer to being under the cap, and they still kept their stars. They still have the William Karlssons of the world, right? Hell of a player. Man, I would never want to give up William Karlsson. That kid's a stud. Let's see here. Seems like they're in the running. They're in the possible running for a trade for maybe Matthew Tuchuk. Trade destination. It was one of the 7 potential trade destinations from Calgary. Good player, excellent player. One of the players that really helped lead the Calgary Flames to, I would say, almost a President's Trophy this year, which is the most wins in the NHL. So the Golden Knights are still players, man, and they're one franchise that's not afraid to gamble, roll the dice, being that they're from Vegas. I know we all get that. It was a slow roasting joke there. I feel it. Smoked it a little bit too long. I hear you. Wrapped up in foil. But listen, man, the Golden Knights have never been afraid to take chances. That's how they've acquired half their roster. Okay, so they're going to be a contender as long as they stay healthy. They'll be fine. They would have been a contender last year if they would have stayed healthy. If half of their starters didn't miss at least 30 games last year, it would have been a team that probably was second, at worst third, in the Pacific Division last year and in the playoffs. They're a very good team. And to be real with you guys, the Las Vegas Golden Knights, they were one of those teams that really were the kryptonite for the Colorado Avalanche. Because the last few years, they beat them in the playoffs. But they just had a recipe, man. It was just a different transition hockey, physical hockey, speed hockey. That's something that just wasn't great for the Colorado Avalanche to go up against. Physical teams Colorado struggled against. And the Golden Knights were one of those teams. When you have half your team injured, there's not much you can do. So if those guys come back healthy, and these guys can somehow figure out a way to get under the cap, they'll still be a very, very big-time contender. When we get back, we are going to play the interview that I had this last Monday with IE Sports Radio's own legend, Larry B. himself, on 3 and Out. Talked about AFC West. He's doing his 8 divisions in 8 days. I think that's very ambitious of him. But he was talking about basically the most powerful division in all of the NFL, which is the AFC West. I had an opportunity to interview with him. He asked some great questions, and we'll play that interview. That's about 35 minutes long. Once that's done, we'll recap that a little bit, talk about some of the, the hot button topics for the Raiders and the way I see it going. Because training camp is here, guys. Training camp is among us, and I'm excited, which means we are that much closer to the Hall of Fame game, which is next Thursday, or August 4th. Which I can't wait for either, against the Jaguars in Ohio. You guys get at the Hall of Fame Stadium. But regardless, the season is so close, it's not even funny, and I cannot wait to see our Raiders roll out with this new roster.
Damn! BDG! Set! Hey!
What's going on, football fans? This is me, your boy Larry B, inviting you to join myself, Colin Reynolds, Mike Pat, and John Felipe for one of the most electrifying football shows you have ever heard. 3 and Out, right here at IE Sports Radio. Recap of the week before, a preview of what's to come, and of course, 3 hardcore head-to-head primetime face-offs each week. You don't want to miss it. College football, and do you want to hear a college football show dedicated to all that is college football, including junior college in the CCCAA and in the NJCAA, the NAIA, and the NCAA, including Division III, Division II, Division I AA in the FCS, and Division I Single A in the FBS. Well then look no further. Join myself, Larry B., and my colleagues, Mr. H-Town Blake Henley, and Mr. Christian Espinoza, each week during the college football season for the latest in college football on 3 and Out College Edition, right here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
Shores of the Puget Sound to the rushing waters of the Columbia River, stretching across the Great Cascades, and on IE Sports Radio lives the Northwest Territory Sports Show, hosted by me, Brad Buckingham. On this show, I cover all the great collegiate and professional sport teams that we have here in the Pacific Northwest. Of course, I'm talking about the Seattle Seahawks, Seattle Mariners, Sounders, and even the Seattle Kraken. But I can't forget all of that is good in Oregon either. I got the Trailblazers, the Oregon Ducks, the Beavers, even the Timbers, and much, much more. You can listen to the show every Sunday from 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern, noon to 1 p.m. Pacific on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
What up, ladies and sinners? Welcome back from that break, that little interlude here. Welcome back to the Sin City Sports Show, presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. You can get at us on our Twitter forums, at SinCity_IESR and at Cale_Henderson. Real quick, to our platform. For the last 8 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content, ranging from interviewing legendary athletes to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. All the while, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and with your help, we are ready to take the next step. When you go to our website, iesportsradio.com, you'll see our Patreon link with 5 different tiers. The first one starting at just $5 a month. This donation gets you a shout out on all 32 of our shows. Higher tiers include IE Sports Radio merchandise, access to our podcasting university, and even a chance to be featured on a segment of our flagship show, The Defining Moment, hosted by Larry B., the man, the myth, the legend himself. Thank you all very much for continuing to make IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports. All right, folks, speaking of Larry B., we are going to play the interview from Monday on the AFC West. AFC West, 8 divisions in 8 days. We were talking about the Raiders on 3 and Out with Larry B., man. When we get back, we'll give a little bit of insight before we close the show. Tell me, you folks, tell me your thoughts on this interview. I think it went really well, and I had a great time. So as you were, we'll be right back.
Welcome back, football fans. Here we are, AFC West Day. We just finished up with Mr. Taron Rodriguez talking about the Los Angeles Chargers and the second team up today, of course, a team very near and dear to my heart and very near and dear to the man on the line at the moment. We're getting ready, Raider Nation, to talk about those Las Vegas Raiders. And, of course, here to help me out, talking about our Raiders. Glad to have him here. He is once upon a time host of the Neutral Zone. He is also, of course, diehard Raider fan. He is football coach. Tell you right now, this guy is awesome. Does a hell of a job coordinating, I think, an entire team. He'll tell us what he does in a few moments here. But coach, and he does everything else, I think, that goes along with it. At a little bit of the lower level, the guy does a hell of a job. I'm really excited to hear all about his season, their season, coming up this year. And can we not forget, he is the host of Sin City Sports here on Tuesday evenings on IE Sports Radio. Phenomenal job every week. There's things that I learn about. He's like a freaking Snapple with Las Vegas sportsman. I love it. I learn stuff every single time. Glad to have him here. Without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Cale Henderson. What's going on, Cale? How's it doing today, brother?
Ladies and sinners, what's happening? Happy to join. Thanks, Larry. It's been a long time, right? It took a while for us to talk, like 3 years. Otherwise, it's been text message or messages on Twitter. Glad to get back in it, man. Last time we interviewed was what got me the job with the Neutral Zone. You were like, hey, dude, I need you here. It's like, hell yeah, let's do it.
Dude, you know your hockey so damn well. I'm glad to have you back. You know your hockey. You know pretty much anything that has to do with sports pretty damn good. I mean, seriously. So I'm very happy about that. And bringing you back aboard, man. I know you had a at the time you had to depart. You had your really, really busy job and everything, but everything kind of mellowed out for you. You had some more time, and there was no way, man. When I was like, okay, we're looking for a Vegas sports show, you were the first guy. I was like, I gotta see if I can get Cale, man. I gotta see if he'll do this, and I'm very happy you have the time for us, man. We just got to promote your show better and get it more out there, but you definitely have a damn good show. I love listening every week, man. I definitely love hearing what you have to say about the silver and black. So with that said, brother, let's go ahead and jump on into the AFC West from last year. You know, it wasn't a bad year. It wasn't good, but it wasn't bad. We finished off the season at 10-7. Of course, the Chiefs would win it to 12-5. We would have here the Raiders, of course. Actually, no, it was a very tough year overall, man. The Raiders at 10-7 last year. It was a stake in the heart, man. It was a very tough one to watch. I don't know. As a diehard, it was rough because I knew that we were better than a lot of teams we played. It's just we didn't win, and it just sucks to know, like, yeah, I felt we were definitely the better team, but we didn't look like the better team on the field today. That sucks. But then again, there were games where like, yes, this is what we know and love. And then, of course, all the crap happened. We all, don't want to get into it, but all the crap happened with just everything last year seemed to punch us in the face in different directions. But we still managed to make the playoffs. Now, you know what, Cale? If I got to be 1,000% honest with Raider fans and myself, I know I'm very harsh on the Raiders, and everyone knows that. But my gosh, man, that Bengals game, I couldn't ask for any more. They literally left everything out. They came down to the final freaking drive. What was it, 4th and 12 or whatever, outside of our end zone. I mean, we're outside of their end zone. I'm just saying, man. The Raiders fought like hell last year, and I'm very glad they did. 10-7 last year, and I am fully hopeful
that they can do even better than that this year and challenge those Chiefs. So it's a little bit of my input there, a little bit of positivity about the Raiders to start things off with. Kale, last year, man, I'll tell you what, these Raiders, it just kind of, I don't know, it was very rough to see how some of these games would end up. It really, really was. So courtesy here of FB Schedules, we ended up at 10-8, of course, but we started the season 3-0, man. Hell of a job. Then we drop 2, we win 2, we drop another 3 in a row. Those damn drops were what killed us. We beat the Cowboys on Thanksgiving in overtime. That was probably my favorite games of the entire season. We lost 2 in a row, and then we finished off the season at 4-0. Amazing job. Then we lost a very close game to Cincinnati in Cincinnati. Kale, give us every raw emotion you can from last year's season as a Raider, man.
I think it's really important to touch on, the off-field side and the on-field side, right? The off-field was just tumultuous, right? You just had the Henry Ruggs situation, the injuries that started to pile up, the John Gruden situation, and, that 3-game slide after that Chargers loss, if you look at it, completely coincides with those off-field issues, and they happen within a month of each other. 2 major parts of your team, whether it be in the coaching staff or on the roster, departed for reasons that weren't, they were the fault of their own. Don't get me wrong. But, the Gruden, I'll say it like this, man. The Gruden thing was a hit job. No one thinks otherwise anymore. Yes, he didn't come off to be a very good human being anymore. And it kind of sucks because I think everybody was really excited for that second round at Chucky. And what happened. He doesn't deserve to be a coach anymore. But it was a hit job. The way that the NFL handled that was absolutely horrible. It was horrific. It looked terrible. And only the NFL could get away with it because of they're a license to print money. That's kind of the way the NFL is. And then the Henry Ruggs thing, which is unspeakable. We said it numerous times on the Sin City Sports Show. Our heart goes out to that family, that young girl, the dog, the family members, the friends. Mm-hmm. It was just heinous. You just can't drive drunk, man. That's a common sense thing in today's society. And then on top of that, 2 weeks after the Henry Ruggs situation, your cornerback gets popped, right? Now he was inebriated. He was found in his car on the side of the road. Actually, it was in a parking lot, for that matter, and he was just reported. So that one isn't as bad, but it's just one of those things where the Gruden regime, it was obvious that the Gruden regime just didn't have the accountability factor, right? Mm-hmm. You just saw players kind of did what they wanted, and towards the end of the year, it happened 3 straight years. There was a meltdown, right? You'd be in playoff contention mode. You'd be in a situation where your record is good enough to make the playoffs, and then, the crap rolled down their leg. The diaper got full, Mm-hmm. They couldn't trust that season fart, and it just went right down their leg, and proverbial season just went to the crapper. So last year was a tiny bit different. I do think the departure of Gruden really forced the leadership of this team to finally step up, the Derek Carrs of the world, the Darren Wallers, and I'll put it like this. The defense stepped up. Rich Bisaccia, the interim head coach, stepped up. I think the assistants, they did the best they possibly could. But I give a ton of credit to Derek Carr because even though his statistics don't show it, nobody wants to talk about it. He was missing his deep threat. He had to throw to it. His number 1 receiver last year was a slot, and his number 2 was Zay Jones, who nobody really knew anything about, played for the Bills. He was traded to the Raiders for a 5th or a 6th round pick. So, they weren't really expecting a ton for him for that kind of value. And somehow Derek Carr still amassed, with Darren Waller out for 7 games, by the way, 6 games, I apologize, 6 games, he still amassed his 4,800 yards and leads his team to the playoffs when it mattered most. And the most important thing that went down was at the end of the season, that young offensive line group that was really struggling with their zone scheme switched to more of an inside zone power scheme, and all of a sudden that run game came to life, and we were sustaining drives. Josh Jacobs was rolling. He was healthy. The defense was getting more sacks because the offenses of the opposing teams were just behind most games, and that's kind of what led to that. And, it was a tumultuous season, to say the least. We shouldn't have lost to Washington. We shouldn't have lost to the Giants. You don't lose those 2 games, you're 12-5, right? And I thought those were huge games. Those were the errors that really screwed the Raiders last year, because that could have been a situation where you're still second in the division, and I don't think your seeding really could have improved at that point because the chips laid where they were, but they were a better team in some cases than what they finished up for sure.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't have said that better myself. Way to sum that up, Kale. Really, really good job, man. Better than I could do. I'd have been talking about that for like 40 minutes. So way to keep that like really, really good and compacted, man. Yeah, because great. You have that ability that I don't. That was a great way of doing that, man. I love it. You really summed everything up in a very like short time. That was awesome. I got to learn. I got to take some pointers from you. But yeah, man. This team looked solid, and you know what, man? I'm just so damn excited to see what we're going to get. I mean, I don't even care what anybody has to say. It's preseason. I'm ready for the Hall of Fame game, man. I'm going to be at practice, but trust me, I'm going to catch the freaking highlights and everything. Why? Because I don't care. It's Raider football, and we're in the Hall of Fame game, and it's freaking preseason. I want to see what we look like. I don't give a damn. It's a scrimmage, you know what I mean? That's all. Like, I want to see what we have. Like, that's all there is to it. So, taking a look here at overthecap.com. Free agency, oh man. Okay, so there were some big-time pickups, departures, all that good stuff. Corey Littleton over to the Panthers. We had Ngakwe, he's headed over to the Colts. Who else? Kwiatkowski, I don't know how to butcher his name, but he's headed over to the Falcons. So a couple players there on the defense. Morrow, also another linebacker. It's like a lot of our linebackers took off. Mariota is now headed over to the Falcons. Solomon Thomas, he's headed over to the Jets. So once again, man, a lot of our defense just split. Casey Hayward over to the Falcons. Zay Jones, solid receiver, I thought, but he's headed over to the Jags. But then we take a look at some of these pickups, man. We had a lot of departures, tons of them. You can go over as many as you'd like to. But also, we actually had a lot of big pickups, I thought, as well, man. The Raiders had a laundry list this year of free agency, and just seeing some of these guys. Chandler Jones. I mean, can we address the freaking elephant in the room? Keelan Cole, I thought that was actually a pretty solid little pickup there. A little sleeper kind of receiver, in my opinion. Vernon Butler, solid. Jaylen Brown coming over from the Titans. Butler from the Bills. So overall, man, some good stuff there. Brandon Bolden, I thought that was pretty solid. Very happy about that one. So taking a look at a couple of these things here, these pickups and drops, let's take a little bit of a look throughout free agency. So, Kale, talk to us, man. What were your biggest pickups and departures of the Raiders free agency this year?
Well, yeah, we'd talk about the elephant in the room. Like, the two biggest ones were Chandler Jones, who, in my opinion, was a massive upgrade over Ngakwe. Ngakwe may be younger, but he was a liability in the run game. I don't think people really talked about that as much as they should have. Was he an excellent pass rusher? Absolutely. But Chandler Jones is your all-around. He's just a football player, man. Like, he's one of the best in the league. He's led the league in sacks and forced fumbles since 2012. We're talking about J.J. Watt, Khalil Mack, Aaron Donald, all those guys in that company of pass rushers. Now, Aaron Donald may be, the freakishly most talented defensive tackle we might have ever seen in the NFL, but still, he's part of that pass rush echelon that we've seen in the league the last 10 years. And Chandler Jones has surpassed all of them. Yes, he's been in the league longer, but he's sustained success on a consistent basis. And I think the thing that he brings more than anything else is he has experience with this staff, dude. The biggest additions to me, and I'll put it in this order. Number 3, in terms of top 3, Chandler Jones. Number 2, the obvious one, Devontae Adams. What a hell of a trade. And that's, you want to talk about big cojones for Dave Ziegler?
Oh, yeah.
That was fantastic. Like, you can't beat that. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL. I know I got into it a little bit with our Arizona host, but I'm sorry. DeAndre Hopkins is not on the same level as Devontae Adams right now. DeAndre Hopkins is a hell of a receiver, and he has impact, but the stats don't lie, dude. Devontae Adams dominated the last 5 years for receivers.
Sure,
touchdowns, yards per reception. It's not even close. It really isn't. And I mean, I get it. DeAndre is talented, but he's not Devontae Adams right now. DeAndre might have a couple more good years in him compared to Devontae because of age difference, but Devontae was just huge. He unlocked so many things for the offense. And then number 1, in my opinion, is Josh McDaniels and this staff. I don't like the Patriots. We have a thing against the Patriots because we're Raiders fans. Tuck rule. But at the end of the day, right? Yeah. At the end of the day, what Josh McDaniels is bringing, this staff is unreal. It really is. The way he assimilated this staff, from Patrick Graham, a defensive coordinator who was really the only bright spot for that Giants team the last 3 years. I love the fact that he's going to be calling plays. Josh McDaniels was a top 5 coach. He might, according to Rex Ryan, he's a top 10 coach in the league, period, even as an assistant. but he was a top 5 offensive coordinator for the last 15 years. 6-time Super Bowl winner. He's learned ad nauseum from the greatest coach of all time, Bill Belichick. And the one thing I can tell you that's really showing and what you're seeing through all the social media and all the practices is accountability. He's going to make sure this team is prepared. He's going to make sure that they understand their assignments. And most importantly, we've heard situations where Derek Carr, your starting quarterback, who's going to be 31 this year, your young center, he's the incumbent starter, right? They fumble snaps, they're running laps. That's something you never heard from the last regime. This culture change with Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels is my number one addition for this Raiders team, and it's not talked about enough.
Beautiful.
Because we're going to see a more prepared, more assignment-driven, and more disciplined football team than we've ever seen. And I'll say this, you and I understand because we've watched film for years, this is going to be the most physical Raiders football team we've seen probably in the last decade.
By far.
They are huge. Huge. Like, they're massive. This is big, athletic human beings. When you look at the receiving room, like, for example, Mac Hollins is one of the guys we're not talking about enough. No, everybody's raving about him. He's going to be the number 2 receiver next to Davante Adams, right? On the other side, he'll probably be that X. He's huge, man. He's like 6'4", maybe 214 pounds, and they're saying he's picked up the offense. He's one of the smartest guys. You may or may not remember him, but in 2020, Raiders are hosting the Miami Dolphins, and a cover 2 was blown, and there was a guy with long hair catching that ball along the sideline from the Dolphins. That was Mac Hollins that we took up, that we snatched from the Dolphins in free agency. So, yeah, those would be my top 3 additions. It's not talked about enough. This team just looks light years different, and the leadership has definitely taken over. But you could tell that Josh McDaniels is a totally different coach than what he was back in Denver. He's hugging players. He's tapping them on the shoulder. You could tell the way he coaches from the sideline just in the videos that I've seen on YouTube. You take a chance, look at that. You see them talk to the coaches. Everybody's engaged with Josh. He's not the czar he was in Denver where he's in charge of everything. Here, he is more of a person, and he has definitely an assignment-driven attitude, and this team's going to be light years better. And they're not getting enough credit, dude. We're being picked to finish third. It wouldn't surprise me if we finished first. Like, it's first or third kind of thing, and that's kind of scary considering I think the Chargers have the most balanced team in our division, which is a gauntlet, the AFC West. Oh, yeah. But the Raiders are going to be a team that I just don't think anybody in the AFC West is prepared for because of how big and physical they're going to be.
Oh, my gosh. I mean, yeah, exactly, man. This team is nasty, and I love it. I love what we've got, man. You're right. The physicality is there. Just everything is coming along with it. And McDaniels, I mean, this is going to be such an exciting freaking year, and we're here for it, man. We're here for it. We're ready to rock and roll. So let's go ahead and jump on into the draft, Kale. We didn't really have much of a, big-time monster draft because, I don't know, we kind of have Davante Adams, which is, in my opinion, probably the best thing you can possibly get out of the draft because, the youngsters, cool, but at least we know exactly what we're getting, who we're getting. I mean, it couldn't have been a better storybook ending, at least for the era for Davante Adams, in his Packer tenure, because, he ended it with heading over to play with his old quarterback from college at Fresno State. I love it. I feel like if he's going to go anywhere, at least he's going to miss the Packers. I totally understand that, but in Rodgers, but hell, if he had a choice to go anywhere else, that's where he'd want to go. So I'm just saying, I think we won in the draft by just simply that. But in the third round, Dylan Parham, offensive lineman out of Memphis. I love their jerseys. I'm just going to tell you right now. I don't know. It's just a thing with me. The Memphis Tigers jerseys are amazing. So, just throw that out there. Anyway, I did get a chance to see this. Yeah, they're pretty freaking sweet. This guy's a solid athlete, I feel like. Going to add some more depth to the offensive line. Pretty solid there. Later on in the draft, of course, that's the third round. Fourth round, Zamir White. We got another guy, some depth back there out of Georgia. Pretty solid dude, especially him falling so late. So, I mean, I'm going to say Neil Farrell, more depth there on the defensive line out of LSU. Could be a total sleeper. We got some pretty solid pickups, even for the later rounds. Gail, what do you think about the Raiders draft this year?
So I'm just going to add on to exactly what I said earlier. The number one addition was this new regime, right?
Yeah.
Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels, do you understand how smart they were? These guys knew we had to spend our first and second round pick to get the best wide receiver in the NFL, because there's no way in hell they didn't think that all of those receivers would go way before we had an opportunity to pick.
Yep.
Think of it like that. From a strat perspective, they saw the draft board where it was, the teams where they were, their needs, what were their top needs, Lions, Saints, all those, and they knew, man, there was no way we were going to get one of the top receivers in the draft, so let's go after one of the top receivers in the NFL. This further just proves my point that Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels were the number one additions for this team, and it goes to show that they know how to evaluate where their position is and what's really going to set up their team for success in the future, not just this year, but 3 years down the road. We're a competitive team now, and if the way this draft played out is any indication into what we're seeing in the future when we do have first and second round picks, we're set up for success for 10 years, man. I'm telling you. Dylan Parham, our best case scenario is he doesn't start. I know it sounds weird because he's a third round pick, but our best case scenario is he doesn't start because John Simpson, Denzel Good, who's back from an injury, and Alex Leatherwood really step up and take over. I do believe Parham is one of the most versatile linemen in all of this draft. Like, he was very special. He could have been a first-round guy. I think his size kind of did it to him, man. I think his size is what prevented him from being a first-round pick, but he might be the starter at center next year. I don't think this staff is married to Andre James. Andre James almost has to have a near all-pro year to keep Dylan Parham from taking that spot next year. That's how good he is. And the best-case scenario is he's a backup this year, a depth piece that could fill in at any time if somebody goes down, and we don't really lose a lot of talent. We just lose experience. I think that's fantastic. Zamir White, to your credit, he was probably one of the better running backs in this draft, by far. He's a tank. His problem was he was on a big depth chart in Georgia, but he's still a monster, right? This guy's faster than Josh Jacobs, bigger, stronger, and faster than Josh Jacobs, and Josh Jacobs is a monster himself. That's how talented Zamir White is. And he's probably going to be the starter next year because I just don't see this regime with their tendencies in the past coming from the Patriots. I don't see them bringing back Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake. So to me, there's no reason why Zamir White can't be the third back in the depth chart, but be the first next year by getting all of this valuable information. I love what you said about Neil Farrell. He was the best nose tackle in this draft by far, especially in the run game, and he has nothing but upside in the pass rush. Matthew Butler was a fifth-year senior, and he was lauded as one of the smartest football players in this draft, period. Not to mention he's a plus pass rusher who's going to play probably the 5 technique in this 3-4 defense that Patrick Graham wants to run. And then Thayer Mumford, nobody's talking about him. He was going to be a first-round left tackle, not the 2022 draft, but 2021. He decided to come back for his senior year, get that degree. He would have been a top 10 pick in the 2021 draft at left tackle after losing to Alabama in the national championship. That's how good he was. And he basically told the coaching staff of Ohio State, I want the best 5 guys we can get on this offensive line. So they moved him to left guard, which is where he's probably going to excel in the future. He's a monster. He's one of the best double teams to backer. He's powerful, big, fast. He's got tackle speed in a guard body. Like, that's what Thayer Mumford is, and they got this dude in the 7th round. He should have been a first-rounder the year before. They grabbed this guy in the 7th round. What value? And then Britton Brown is just another guy who's got a ton of talent, really good out of the backfield. That's something the Patriots were always really good at, is finding running backs that can catch the ball. I'll put it to you like this. To me, he's Brandon Bolden's replacement. Brandon Bolden is going to be 32 years old. We brought him over from the Patriots. He's a running back. He's averaged more than 10 yards per reception his entire career. Per reception out of the backfield. Britton Brown is a carbon copy of this guy, maybe even faster. These guys are filling out their depth chart already, and we haven't even gotten past this first year. And I can't imagine what their evaluation is going to be like when they have a full off season. They have their entire recruiting program or recruiting and assessment program looking at all of these college stars and saying, man, I think the Raiders have like 8 picks next year. I can't imagine what it's going to be like having a first and second round pick along with 6 other picks that these guys can choose from with the way they value talent. It was very impressive this year.
I completely, man, where's that applause button? Gosh damn it, Kale, you freaking hit this on the head, man. That was beautifully said, man. You're absolutely right. You take a look at, this is a science, you guys. I don't care what anybody has to say, man. Go ahead and say it's just sport. No, this is a science. There's a reason why teams like the Patriots win. There's a reason why things like this happen. It's not by chance. No, it's not rigged. I'm just saying, y'all. Some people just need to think differently. And, I mean, this coaching staff now, it is unreal. Look at the value. You're absolutely right, Kale. Look at the value in these players. You have to pay attention. Football season for these coaches never ends. It literally, I mean, what? You've taken a few weeks here off and there. Vacation with the family, cool. But your eyes are always looking, oh, this guy didn't come out last year. That's funny. Oh, his draft stock fell. Oh, he's still here in the 7th round drafted. He would have been freaking 5th overall last year. I mean, you have to pay attention to these things. You have to have that photographic memory. Where have I seen that name before? Huh, that's interesting. In college, she led the SEC. You have to think of these things. And beautifully said. Oh, man, I'm so damn it. You got me more pumped up for the season now, damn it, Kale. I'm so excited for this right now. Man, I'm so excited. I'm looking at the schedule right now because, look at my chops, man. I'm so excited for this. Let's take a look at it. Courtesy of FBschedules.com. We have here, coming up first overall, man, those Sharks are going to be hard to beat. But, of course, we start the season with them. We have the entire AFC West, which I feel is a new powerhouse of the NFL this year. Because, seriously, why not? Amazing. We have the AFC South. Yes, we have the AFC South this year. And we also, if I'm not mistaken, who in the hell else do we have? We have the AFC South and the NFC. Whoa, look at that. How about that? The NFC West and the AFC South, if I'm not mistaken. The outlier teams are the Tennessee Titans coming out of the NFC South, or the AFC South, and I believe no, it's not them. Jacksonville. Well, that's fun. The Jacksonville Jaguars coming out of the AFC South here. So, I mean, we have a couple of different teams here. Oh, the Patriots, I'm sorry, out of the AFC East. That's another outlier team. So, them and the Titans coming out of different divisions. But, dude, what do you think, man? Looking at the schedule right now, what do you think in this year for these Raiders?
So, again, this division is so... Like, you mentioned the Chargers. I believe they're the most complete team in the NFL. I hate to say that, but
truth.
They've taken advantage... They've taken advantage of that Justin Herbert rookie contract, and they filled out this roster with the most complete team that I've seen in the NFL. Like they averaged more, they allowed more than 5.5 yards to carry last year. So what they do, they stuffed the middle with defensive linemen this year. They had issues guarding number 1 wide receivers. What they do, they went out for J.C. Jackson. Now, I've heard that there's some real character issues with this guy, like workout, stuff like that. Like he's just a natural athlete, and he gives up a ton of yards. But he doesn't give up a lot of touchdowns. So what they do, they go out and they sign him. And it was a value contract, dude. Like a lot of people were predicting about $20 million a year, close to the Ramsey type. Not Jalen Ramsey, I apologize. I think that is Jalen Ramsey out of the Rams. They were thinking that he'd have that kind of contract. No, they got him for $16.5 million. The Chargers addressed all their needs with the exception of that interior offensive line, which still needs a little bit of work. Mm-hmm. I still believe with Justin Herbert's talent, is he's going to probably ascend to that elite form this year. Like, seriously, as long as Brandon Staley doesn't screw it up and go for it on 4th down inside of his own 20, I think this team is looking at a 12 to 13 win season. So that could be tough. As long as the Raiders don't have any injuries going into that first game, I do give the advantage to the Raiders because it's a new scheme. It's a new regime. Devontae Adams, J.C. Jackson can't guard Devontae Adams, and there's nobody in this league that can guard Darren Waller one-on-one. I do give the advantage to the Raiders because they've improved tremendously on defense, and that offense is just going to be so hard to stop. I'm throbbing at the mouth for week 2 because I'd love to rub it in our Arizona host face, especially after a little bit of a competition or speak. I think Kyler Murray, in my opinion, he's got a ton of talent. He's got a higher ceiling, but I think he's overrated, and he's kind of a crybaby. So I would love to see them just get dusted in week 2. It's going to be a tough game. I don't know how we landed the Tennessee Titans, to be honest with you. That's going to be a rough game if Derrick Henry is healthy. But again, we have a team that is much improved. Denver Broncos, to me, I know everybody's excited about Russell Wilson. They still didn't fix their offensive line. He goes from a team that allowed 43 sacks to a team that allowed 42. And the sad part is they didn't have a mobile quarterback last year, right?
Mm-hmm.
Drew Lock was garbage. He's hot garbage. And the Broncos didn't improve their offensive line. They're hoping that their experience just makes it better. I don't think he went to necessarily a better situation. When people say that Russell Wilson didn't have pass catchers, I think they're high. He had Tyler Lockett. I mean, what? Tyler Lockett? You had the big man on the outside. I don't know why I'm blanking on that right now, but he's one of the biggest, fastest wide receivers, DK Metcalf, in the league. And you're going to sit here and tell me he didn't have weapons? Stop it. Okay, he's not going to a better situation in Denver. They're going to really have to run the ball well, and I just think the rest of our division set up to stop the run now.
Oh, man.
I look at the Denver Broncos in fourth place, and what's scary is I think the Chiefs will probably be 1 or 2.
Well,
the Chargers will probably be 1 or 2, and the Raiders will probably be 1 or 3. I know it sounds weird, but that's the room for error we have at the top 3.
Well, you know what?
And this schedule. What's up?
Oh, no, you're good. I was about to say, might as well jump to the final segment, man, because you're already kind of hitting on it in some of
Yeah, so that was a piece of the segment. That was basically the entire interview there. We had about 5 minutes left, but we're running close to the show. I mean, the big portions of the interview were what we hit, right? The Raiders have had an excellent offseason. I gave them a B-plus draft. I know you guys remember when we go, recapping back to some of the first episodes here on the Sin City Sports Show, we recapped, we were talking about, and this is in real time, by the way, the interview's over. We talked about how I gave the Raiders a B-plus because they didn't have a first and second round pick. But I gave them a B-plus because the picks they did have and the trade backs they made and the players that they grabbed were value picks. Almost every single round, in my opinion, was a value pick for the Raiders. And that's why I gave them a B-plus. If they would have had round 1 and 2, I'm sure they would have grabbed big-time pieces. But the fact that they used round 1 and 2 to get the best wide receiver in the NFL, your quarterback who is borderline elite's best friend, and all you did was add to a roster that already had Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. You went out and you got, Demarcus Robinson for the Chiefs, who has experience at making big-time catches when it's needed. I am a big fan of Mac Hollins. I hope he kills it. It sounds like he's doing great in camp. Sounds like he's picking up the playbook really well. So you have those two guys really compete for that second receiver position, the X in this offense. And then on top of that, I'm hearing great things from Tyron Johnson. Tyron Johnson's a speedy wide receiver that we picked up from the Chargers a couple years ago. Former Oklahoma State Cowboy. Dude's got nasty speed, like 4.34 speed. And that's something this Raiders regime or this Raiders roster is missing right now is speed, right? I think you have massive blocking receivers. That's something I can tell you guys. Like, there's going to be lanes open on the outside because these receivers are just huge and they're all team players. Tyron Johnson's going to be a home run threat. Josh McDaniels is one of the best play designers in all the NFL. Obviously, he's done it for almost 2 decades. This is a really, really, really underrated team right now, and the Raiders deserve their flowers, man. They've killed it. They've killed it. They've done so well. Respect where respect is due. I think the Chargers are the best team in the division overall, roster-wise, right now. The Chiefs will probably surpass everybody again in a couple years because it's going to take them a couple years for them to kind of gel with the brand new pieces on their offense. Doesn't mean they're going to have a huge fall off. It's going to be one of those things that, if those teams go 1-1, the team that beats the Broncos twice, and it's not going to be easy, right? I picked the Broncos last in the division. Doesn't mean it's going to be easy to beat the Broncos. I'm just stating that I believe the team that goes 2-0 against the Broncos could win the division. And then you got to look at the matchups towards the end of the year. Big time matchups towards the end of the year. I want to say, when you look at the Raiders' schedule, let's take a look here. When you look at the Las Vegas Raiders' schedule. By the way, I wanted to make a slight correction. I did say 7 draft picks for next year's draft. The Raiders actually have 9 draft picks based off the trades and the moving around they did late in the draft this year. So, this new regime and Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels will have 9 picks to use. Doesn't mean they'll use all of them on Raiders players. I'm not saying that, or on future draft picks. They probably should. They're going to have about $50 million in cap space next season, which is great. But you definitely need to continue to build the roster or you're in trouble. Kansas City is the Week 18 matchup. So hear me out on this. The Raiders play the New England Patriots Week 15. I think, honestly, that it wouldn't surprise me if the Raiders win that game and Josh McDaniels just gets his flowers because of beating his old mentor, right? Bill Belichick is still the master. but I just don't see the New England Patriots matching up against the Raiders that well that game. But we don't know because, one thing Bill Belichick's done for years is basically come up with game plans that shut down your main weapons. The unfortunate part for any team playing the Raiders this year is they have at least 3 or 4 guys that they have to shut down, and it's almost impossible to do that in today's defense. The Steelers, I don't know what's going on with their quarterback situation. I'll consider that a win. The Niners will be tough, but Trey Lance, part of me thinks Trey Lance, I think the Niners win 10 games, but it's because Trey Lance is just going to be gaining experience. I'm not sold on Trey Lance. Is he an excellent athlete? Yes. Do I think they should move on from Jimmy G? Probably not. You should have done that earlier in the season. I think Jimmy G is still better right now at this time, but I could be wrong. I hope Trey Lance comes out and balls out like Patrick does. And then we have a Week 18 matchup. That Week 18 matchup against the Kansas City Chiefs it's at Allegiant Stadium at home for the Raiders could be a lot like what we saw with the Chargers. It could be it could be the win that decides the division. And if that's the win that decides the division, hopefully all these teams are in the 12 to 13 win range. That's home field advantage throughout the playoffs too. What I'm worried about is that this entire division is going to eat each other alive, and we're looking at 10, 11 wins the division. And then your seeding's a little bit messed up in the playoffs. But I can tell you that there are a lot of other divisions that can't match up with any of the 4 teams in the AFC West. So positive news. Real quick, want to transition before we close out the show. Denzel Good, I want to give him his flowers, man. He deserves it. Denzel Good, happy trails. He's decided to retire. That's kind of a big loss because the last 3 years he was a guard that stepped in, and he wasn't elite by any means, but he was always very, very good when he was healthy, and he did a great job of moving people around and opening holes for Josh Jacobs on a week-to-week basis. So Denzel Good, happy trails. To me, that's a big hole for this roster because that was a veteran piece that I thought would come back from injured reserve, a torn ACL last year in the first game. Apparently rehab was just really tough, and it made it really tough for him to come back and be fully healthy. So Denzel Good is retiring. With that said, Darrell Williams is still on the market. J.C. Treader is still on the market. Both very experienced offensive linemen in today's NFL that could either fill in at the tackle or fill at the guard position. I think Darrell Williams is probably the more obvious signing. J.C. Treader, I know he's had knee and ankle injuries, but he's more of a center, and he's one of the top centers. He was one of the top centers in NFL the last 8 years. So if the Raiders could get one of the 2 guys, that's a win. But as far as who I think they should go after, it should be Darrell Williams. They still have $24 million in cap. They could definitely do it. I think they're focusing on re-signing Darren Waller. Don't get me wrong. He'll be the priority. But you could still sign guys like Trey Flowers, who's had experience with the New England Patriots. He'd know what to do in this type of a defense. You still have guys out there like Ndamukong Suh. I think Ndamukong Suh would be a perfect fit. Even though he's a little bit older, he still was one of the best defensive players for the Bucs last year, especially in the middle of that line. Is he going to give you 7 sacks a year? No, but he was averaging 5 the last few years in his mid-30s. Ndamukong Suh is still dominant. And if Ndamukong Suh can take up 2 blocks, that does nothing but bode well for Max Crosby and Chandler Jones. It makes them better. And the other one I think is an underrated signing because of injuries last year. I know he struggled in the Packers defense in that cover 4 system that Dom Capers used to run, but Kevin King is somebody I could totally see the Raiders bringing in as an experiment. It sounds like the cornerbacks are doing very well in training camp thus far, like they're kicking ass. But if we're being real, man, you always want as much depth or impact depth you can get on that defensive backfield, and that's one of the question marks. I don't question the defensive backfield talent. I think what they did this offseason and bringing back Mullen and bringing in Everett and signing guys or trading for guys like Yasin Rock Yasin, who looks like an absolute monster, by the way, out of pads. He doesn't look like a cornerback, that's for sure. Sounds like he's been very sticky with Devontae Adams too. Iron sharpen iron. The only position I was really worried about is strong safety, but they addressed that with Deron Harmon. To me, Jonathan Abrams is it's been a letdown. He's really bad in coverage, so I hope that Patrick Graham is smart and uses him as like a 4th linebacker in a coverage scheme. Something to keep him up front in the hook to curl area, making it really hard for tight ends to stay open in those little holes in the zone. But other than that, guys, you know how we do it, man. I'm excited for the Raiders season. It's right around the corner. I want to thank Larry B for having me on his show. I hope we do that more often. As the season goes, like I said, guys, we're announcing this now. I'm going to do small videos breaking things down on the whiteboard. Hopefully they turn out really well and you guys like it and we get some great feedback and great following. But more than anything, man, you guys, I just want you to stay healthy, stay happy. Tune in every Tuesday, 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. You know what we do. This is the Sin City Sports Show presented by IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. I'm your host, Cale Henderson. And again, we will see you back. Love, peace, and hair grease.